York City, then they are learning the same things that I'm learning, but looking at it as the way that Dr. Graham looks at cases. But the conclusions that you're coming to with injuries like gunshot wounds are, there's no gray. There's not gray. The thing either is or it is not a gunshot wound. So being trained by different people doesn't change the fact that if I peer reviewed a case from New York City, for example, I can say, yes, that's a gunshot wound. Yes, I agree that that's an entrance. And okay, there's the projectile that was recovered. And here's what the person said the internal injuries were. And I can use my own judgment to say, yes, that makes sense.
So if you conduct a report and there's a possibility that the person that's peer reviewing your report, which is not blind, was taught by someone else, do they get to see all of or everything that you saw coming into the report, or are they just looking at the report you created? No,
they're looking at the circumstances under which the person's death was reported, the scene findings, the scene photographs that were taken by the investigator from our office, and then they're looking at the autopsy photos so that they're making their own, okay, yes, Sullivan says gunshot wound on the left of the chest is an entrance wound. Okay, yes, I agree. If they don't agree, then we discuss, okay, I don't think that that's an entrance wound. I think that might be an exit wound, and you come to an agreement in that way.
Okay, and my last question, does the person that peer reviewed your work, do they know your findings before they start the peer review, or is it to where they make their own decision and then they realize or see what your findings are?
No, they know because they've got a copy of the preliminary report, so they know what my findings are.
Right. And you said that's best practices in your office?
Yes.
All right, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Anybody else?
Since there's no clock in here, I don't know whether it's morning or afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
A couple of things. Does the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office have an investigator?
Yes.
Does the investigator do a preliminary report that is provided to you?
Yes.
In this particular case, was there a medical examiner's investigator's report provided to you prior to your autopsy?
Yes.
All right. And you take into consideration those findings and the investigation done by the medical examiner's investigator, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then you start the autopsy. In the autopsy, do you dictate your findings?
At the end, I dictate at the end of the autopsy. Some people dictate during the autopsy, but I dictate at the end.
And do you take any notes other than your dictation of your report?
I do take notes, yes.
Okay. And you, of course, maintain those notes, correct?
Until I have finalized the report, yes.
Okay. And then those notes are what, destroyed?
There's a set of notes that go into the case management system that has a person's organ weights, and there may be a diagram on the back that shows where injuries were. But additional detailed notes concerning the size of a gunshot wound, et cetera, once I've finalized the report, I don't save those notes.
Okay. Notes are taken, but only a very small slice is saved, correct?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning at this point. My basis is that it's not relevant to the factors in Daubert of the
I
qualification.
must sustain the objection.
Thank you.
I understood that there is a protocol that you follow.
Yes.
And is that a written protocol?
No.
So there is no written protocol as to what best practices are.
No, an autopsy is a straightforward procedure. So I do the same type of examination on each homicide victim, or actually each autopsy I do.
Okay, well, we had talked in terms of best practices. Are best practices enumerated anywhere, either in the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office or in any of the organizations that you may be involved with?
And that I do not know, not in our office, no.
So when you talk about best practices, there's nothing, there's no protocol, written or otherwise, that you follow. It's your best practice, correct?
It's the best practice that I was taught following what people do in our office and according to the NAME guidelines.
Okay, and what are the main guidelines?
The NAME guidelines are in homicide cases that a complete autopsy is performed, looking at both internal evidence of natural disease and injury and examining the internal organs for natural disease and injury, retaining any projectiles or sharp force or sharp instruments that were used to injure someone, drawing blood, vitreous fluid, urine if necessary.
I guess my question was directed at, is this recorded somewhere? Is there a standard which you are guided by nationally or locally?
Yeah, what exactly the NAME standards, the exact wording is, I do not know. But I know in order to do a complete autopsy on a person, then you have to do what I just said.
Okay. Dr. Randy has published several books on forensic pathology, several versions, right? Version 1, first edition, second edition. Have you published anything with regard to? Thank you. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Identify yourself for record, please.
Attorney Eric Johnson.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Excuse me. Mr. Eppinger. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You mentioned earlier that in your analysis or the reports that you generate, you receive I believe, an investigator's police report case.
A Fulton County investigator's report, yes, but that's separate from the police report.
Now, do you incorporate what you get in the investigative report in your final report?
I have a section that's called Reason for Performing an Examination, where I briefly summarize in 2 or 3 sentences why the person is dead and is needing an exam.
And that is based on what you receive in the investigative report?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe you stated earlier that your determination is to determine the cause of death, correct?
The cause and manner, yes.
So nothing that you do determines the circumstances of an individual's death.
That is correct.
And so, and in your report, do you include any type of, I guess, the word I'm looking for, do you believe your own presumptions as far as the manner of death or the circumstances around a person's death in your report?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Do you include any of your opinions regarding an individual, the circumstances surrounding a person's death, not the actual manner of death?
That the person was shot in cases of homicide, that the person was shot by another individual or other individuals, plural.
But nothing in your report gives anything as far as the identity of any individuals or anything like that?
That may have been involved, you mean?
Yes.
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Remember, folks, this is just Daubert qualifications. It's not her trial examination. So, and with that, anybody else? All right. Unless there's any specific objection, the court will qualify Dr. Sullivan as an expert in the area of forensic pathology. All right. Anything else, madam?
Thank you, Your Honor.